this risk mitigation week, all this week on Property Tribes, and how appropriate to be filming on location here at the Landlord Investment Show at Olympia, because this is the type of event that you would come to mitigate your business risk by educating yourself and getting professional advice. And joining me to discuss this topic is Paul Shamplina of Landlord Action, a very well-known face. Paul, I thought you would be such a good person to discuss business risk in the property context with, because we've identified three main risks, which really are financial risk, regulatory risk, and the risk of encountering rogue tenants, rogue letting agents, rogue operators of some description. Yeah. You can talk across all those topics, but I think ultimately it actually all boils back to financial risk.
Well, most definitely. I mean, firstly, you know, there's so many people at this show that aren't landlords that want to be landlords, and I do talks up and down the country. So, you know, on the financial, you know, people that want to become landlords, the market is still really strong with regard to supply and demand, and we're going to hit over 70 million people living in this country. So actually, you know, with regard to property, it's still the leading investment returns, because obviously people need to sleep somewhere, you know. And I have seen a lot of landlords now shifting, and you're in that market, into the hospitality market and the short stay market. I mean, having the versatility of mixing up your portfolio. I've got a friend of mine that's moved into serviced offices to mix up his portfolio. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's all about finance. It's about financial freedom. But of course, you know, what cash have you got? What can you obviously, I think the mortgage rates are really good, but obviously the banks now are much more stress testing with regard to the borrowings that are happening. So the key obviously on the financial is actually have someone who's great with regard to that advice, a financial advisor that obviously is niche and deals and specialises in property, rather than a general financial advisor, and preferably someone who's a landlord as well that gets it, you know, on the financial.
No, I agree with you. I think that would be kind of an overarching kind of way to mitigate business risk, would be to seek professional advice. And we know that, you know, landlords tend to, you know, balk a little bit of paying for professional advice. And I know that you're a big advocate of working with reputable suppliers and products and services, again, because that mitigates big business risk.
Yeah, I mean, look, 85–90% of landlords are the ones or twos or threes landlords. I was just in the government debate, you know, and they were talking about these landlords and the government are after these small landlords and whatever. You know, it depends where they want to go, and I think a lot of landlords, they don't business plan. You know, they don't have an exit strategy, or it might be it's a buy-to-let, it brings income in. We don't have no plan of building our business. You have to get professional advice. I think the biggest problem with any industry is actually researching and getting the right people to assist you in your business. So that could be obviously the financial advisor, an expert person in tax that's niche in tax and property tax, a letting agent that you know you've done your diligence, that you've got friends that are using that letting agent, and you've checked out all agents, you know, and then of course, you know, your maintenance team, you know, make sure you have a reliable maintenance, you know, having the right professional assistance when you're running a portfolio and management, because management's the hardest part in renting. You know, buying a property, sourcing a deal. I mean, that's the juicy, enjoyable stuff. But actually trying to rent it out, finding the right tenant, getting them to stay as long as possible. You know, I was speaking to a landlord before. He's had a tenant in his property for 16 years. You know, I mean, landlords want to produce and offer tenants homes, and I think that gets lost in a lot of the rhetoric, especially on a recent TV programme we saw this week as well, which a certain individual, Fergus Wilson, does nothing for our industry, and I was cringing when I was watching that.
Indeed. Now, you mentioned the word due diligence. No conversation about managing risk can exclude those important words, because you have to do due diligence on your letting agency, on everybody that you come into contact with, and very importantly on tenants. And you see very often with Landlord Action, you know, the end result of people that haven't done enough robust tenant referencing.
You know, we see it all the time. I mean, Landlord Action's been going 18 years, and we have a team of 8 or 9 solicitors and paralegals that are just doing all the legal work, all for fixed fees, and are regulated, which is really important. You know, when you instruct a letting agent, you know, you instruct them on the basis that they're going to put a decent tenant into your property. You know, just because they've given you a referencing report, break down what that referencing report is. Ask questions, because, you know, what's going to happen now with letting agents, they're now going to be pushing their fully management service. And I do a lot of training in letting agents' offices and workshops on how to attract more landlords, how to retain landlords. So, you know, letting agents really want to make sure that they look after landlords, and they want to look after a landlord for the life of them being a landlord on tenancy agreement. But yeah, we see loads of problem tenants. Universal credit hasn't helped. We've seen a lot of landlords exit because of Section 24. I'm doing a legal debate, chairing a legal debate later, which I'm going to be mentioning. But I can tell you now from writing, I did some consultations on housing courts and longer term tenancies. Mark my words, Section 21 is going to be massively diluted. It's not non-fault. Everyone's talking about non-fault. It really annoyed me. It didn't help because it all came from the Panorama programme, and they came in our office, and I did an interview to obviously speak up to Richard Bilton, the journalist at the time. And I said, it's not non-fault. I said, there's always a reason why a landlord needs his property and wants to serve a Section 21 notice. Most commonly, almost 60% of a recent survey we did is because of rent arrears. But beware, Section 21 will be whittled down. You won't be able to, I think, give it a couple of years, you won't be able to serve a Section 21 if there's rent arrears. If you want to move back into property or you need to sell, it's going to move in a bit like Scotland. There'll be extra grounds on a Section 8.
Well, it's interesting because one thing we can't really mitigate against is government policy, and it's constantly changing, and the goalposts keep moving. And I think, you know, ultimately, when people get into property, they want to create financial freedom. But if things go wrong and things start to unravel, then of course they can lose everything. You know, people investing pensions. Risk should be talked about more in property, don't you think? Yeah,
most definitely. It is all about safe-proofing yourself and going against the risk. So obviously, you know, against non-paying tenant, you can get rental insurance, which makes total sense. You know, making sure that you have your insurances. You know, obviously I'm brand ambassador of Hamilton Fraser. We run total landlord insurance. You know. There's so many landlords that are underinsured. There's so many landlords renting properties out in this show that don't have landlord insurance. They have buildings insurance, but it doesn't cover you if there's a problem with the property or the tenants trash the property. Underinsurance is a real big problem. You know, you can all be offset. But I mean, I think what happens is, with regard to the government changes, and it was said in that government debate, so much happened in the last 18 months. They haven't actually, and then there's still more consultations that are happening, and obviously we had the Homes and Fitness Bill that came in yesterday, where tenants can obviously sue landlords, and because of the pressure of the environmental health officers that can't go around and serve notices. I don't think they gave enough time to bed stuff in, so they just piled loads of stuff in, and I think that's what's been really confusing. And when I speak to landlords, yes, there's the tax, but it's been the rhetoric in the industry, and obviously the legislation changes. And I know landlords, friends of mine, but people that call up landlord action or my deposits, or whatever, they're exiting because they've just had enough. You know, the market's doubled, you know, since 1996, but people need to live somewhere. And I think long term, if you're looking long term, you know, your rents will still keep rising, as far as I can see.
Indeed. Well, just coming to the end here now, Paul, I think one final thing to say is that when it comes to kind of business risk in property, it's always less expensive and less hassle to go for prevention rather than cure. Yeah. And I know that you see people when they're in cure mode at Landlord Action, but ultimately you do a huge amount of educational work for landlords in prevention mode, and that's where landlords should really operate, shouldn't they? Yeah,
I mean, prevention, it can cover so much, but I mean, you know, prevention in the sense that, you know, again, who are you associating yourself, where are you buying your properties, where are you getting your finance, you know, are they FCA regulated, who are these people that are assisting you? I think actually with a lot of things, your transactional deals that you're doing or people that you're working with, there's no better way of using an individual to assist you with your property your property journey than actually being recommended to them. I think going on forums like yourself. I mean, the amount of work you guys do, you do a lot of really good work. Where obviously, we have the property gurus, the people that have paid money over. And people can be so naive, and we've seen it. We've seen people part with thousands of the dream of being cash rich and offering to get 5 properties within a certain year and having win worth £1 million. I think that the market changes. There's a lot more stress testing. 25% loan to value. It's very hard to actually get. Sometimes when you go to some of these property shows, you do see property investment companies that will advertise and make, I think, false representations. So you've got to really drill down to the numbers and pose questions on someone like your forum.
Indeed, and also we have to say that Google is your friend when it comes to managing risk as well, because even
reviews,
and peer-to-peer reviews as well, very important. Paul, it's been great to see so many people here as well today, isn't it? Landlords here, all educating themselves, and we cannot stress enough that it is a case of due diligence or die.
Due diligence or die.
So thanks very much to you, Paul.
Thank you.
And please stay tuned. We've got more coming up on Business Risk Mitigation Week. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, we invite you to click across to propertytribes.com and join the conversation. And even you can talk to Paul on Property Tribes as well, because he's a member. But thank you for watching and hope you've got value.